In this video, I'm gonna break down exactly how I've made money with 3D printing over the past 5 years of being in this hobby. I'm gonna break down everything from how I got started, my journey with 3D printing and how I've made money with it, from the mistakes I made to even exactly what you need to know in order to turn this hobby into a full-time income. Now, the reason why I'm making this video is because for most of the people that I work with, most people who jump into this hobby realize at some point they can turn this hobby into a business. Whether you're selling physical prints, whether you're selling STL files, whether you're selling a membership, heck, whether you're just selling a file that your friend found online, you printed for them and that you exchange that print for their money, right? And the concept of just being able to design something and print it and then possibly even sell it, it's kind of an appealing thing to do because you really don't need much commitment, you don't need a fancy machine, and you don't need to spend a lot of money on filament in order to make this work. But nowadays, with all the different machines that are out on the market, with all the different files and things that you can print, and with all the different niches and products that you could possibly even print and sell, how do you know what to sell? How do you know what actually works? And how do you know the niche you do pick actually makes a return on your investment? So in this video, I kind of want to break down how I got started in this, how I made my first dollar online selling 3D printed products. And yes, I wasn't selling Flexies, dragons, and toys. I was actually selling my own product that I had designed. And at that time, no one was selling it. Everything from not only how I got started, all the way up to how I sell memberships now, in addition to some of the mistakes that I made, and lastly, what you need to know if you're looking to get started. So let's actually start from the very beginning. My journey actually started back around 2020, 2021. I was actually looking to buy a Cricut machine because I thought it looked interesting and maybe I can use it for some sort of side income or side hustle money. And truthfully, at that time, I didn't really think or look too much into it. I bought the machine, found out it really wasn't a right fit for me, so I just returned it on Amazon, right? But when you look up a product on Amazon, you'll often find very much related products. And one of the related products that was, I guess, in that category was a 3D printer. And the first 3D printer I bought was an Ender 3. So I saw the machine on Amazon and I just thought, heck, why not buy it? It looked interesting and seemed cool. I had an idea for something and I think that 3D printing could possibly work for that idea. Long story short, that actually didn't turn out. But I can tell you, as soon as I bought my Ender 3, I was like entrenched in that machine. I spent days, weekends, hours on end tinkering, developing, upgrading those machines. And if you come from a time before Bamboo or any of these newer machines that have came out, back then 3D printing was very different than what it is now. Back then 3D printing was like made by two big players. It was Prusa or Creality. And this is for at-home 3D printing. Some of the bigger players like MakerBot, those guys were in the picture, but truthfully it wasn't really like a big thing. Most people will not be spending $4,000 to $6,000 on those machines. And with Creality and Prusa being kind of affordable options, especially with Creality being around $200 to $300 for one of their machines, and then Prusa being around $700 to $800, it was kind of like this thing where if you wanted a budget machine that just got the job done, you went with Creality. But if you wanted something that was a workhorse, that was print farm material, and that actually got the job done reliably, you went with Prusa. Now at that time, I really didn't have enough money, but I can tell you that once I bought my Ender 3, I was hooked. Once I bought my Ender 3, I purchased an Ender 5 because heck, I felt like when I had a project printing on my Ender, I needed another printer to use because it just wasn't time efficient. And truthfully, I had no reason to buy another one other than the fact that I just wanted to print day in and day out. From then and there, once I actually got good at this hobby, understanding slicing, printing, what filaments to use, then I learned how to design, at least some of the basic skills around the designing. Now, I knew that I could sell prints at that time, but here's the thing. I knew at that time I could turn my machine into a full-time income, but I just didn't know what to sell. I knew that there was people selling stuff, but there really wasn't a market for like selling fidgets or toys or flexies, even more so selling multicolored toys and flexies. Like that isn't a thing like now where you see a lot of people selling that stuff like minis and fidgets. Back then, you really had to get creative. I saw a lot of print farms online, especially when I was doing my own research around how to start a 3D printing business. You would see lots of print farms with Ender 3s at an angle with their machines set up with a specific G-code to push the print off the plate. And it was very niche products that most people really wouldn't know about. And for good reason, because if someone were to see that design and then replicate it, they can just come in and try to take up some market share. So I really understood why most of these 3D printing companies, or at least print farms, right, were really secretive as to what they were selling, because there was people that would come in and yes, they would steal your product and try to undercut you if they could. So I knew if I wanted to separate myself, I needed to get creative. It was either sell low value fidgets and toys or whatever you can find online, and at that time that did exist, or try to find a product from scratch that was like a new invention and try to reinvent the wheel, which these are two extremes that I did not want to be part of. I had to be somewhere in the middle. And then one day I came up with the idea of like a neon sign, and I was actually looking up at neon signs and how they were made. You know, there's different types of neon signs that exist, but I knew you could actually buy the wire LED lighting on Amazon. And if you were good with soldering and wiring, you can actually solder these pieces together to actually make the neon light. And I tell you, I spent an entire week or two trying to figure out exactly how this worked, because there was actually no information online as to how to solder, how to set up the neon LED strips specifically for the type of thing that I was doing. But once I had the idea stuck with me. And then fast forward, once I actually made my product, my first product was this NASA neon sign. And the cool thing about this is that this took me less than $30 to make. And I was seeing my competitors charging anywhere between $90 to $200 for a similar sign just like this, even up to this point. And the reason for this is because most neon signs, especially with traditional LED lighting like the strips you get on Amazon, they're actually put on acrylic, which has to be cut by a machine. But with 3D printing, all I needed was the outline of the product, and I was able to embed the strips into the outline, thus charging a premium or a similar price tag to what my competitors were charging and making more profit with less labor. And truthfully, the funny thing about this is that when I was actually making these products, a lot of them were either custom or either specific requests. So I would charge even more, sometimes up to $150 to $250, depending on what the customer wanted. So I was making so much profit, and it took me around 20 to 30 minutes to actually assemble this. And this was my first taste of success of actually selling a 3D printed product. And the cool thing about this is that I did not just only use 3D printing to develop a product. I actually used several other things in the process to develop a product that wasn't just 3D printed, but actually a product that was unique in its own way. And most people, actually no one was selling this product at this time. So it was a blue ocean. Nowadays, you can go on MakerWorld, you can go on any other website, you'll see tons of people, you know, with light boxes and all this sort of stuff. But now, back then, that was a thing for me, that honestly, making an extra $5,000 to $1,000 a month just by making neon signs, in addition to having high profit margins. And just to give you an example, I sold this neon sign, this NASA neon sign, for $97. $97 minus the $30 in expenses, the neon strips, the wiring, my time, and truthfully it only took like 30 minutes to assemble them, and then the 3D print, which was actually less than $3 to $5 in material, which is around $30 in expenses. 97 minus 30, that left me with $60 in profit. All I needed to sell was 5 of those. I already made $300. Now obviously there's taxes and other things like that, but my point here was that I had to sell less of these products in order to reach the revenue goal I wanted, where most people nowadays, they need to sell more product in order to reach the revenue they want, right? So for example, if you're a seller right now that's selling flexies, fidgets, or toys, or very low value items and trinkets, that means you need to sell your product in volume in order to make that revenue goal that you have in your business. Whereas the same product that I was selling 5 years ago, I only had to sell only a handful of these, maybe 15 to 30 of these, to actually reach that same revenue goal. Let's just say $10,000 a month, compared to someone else who's selling flexies and fidgets, even with the ability to do multicolor. And I really want to emphasize, there was no multicolor. There was no fast out of the box 3D printing. You only had the ability to create what you could print or find online with the limited information and color options and swatches that existed at that time. So you really had to get creative. And that was my first taste of success, especially when it came to selling a 3D printed product. Moving on to my second taste of success was selling STL files. Now look, in order to create the NASA neon sign that I had made, I actually needed to learn Fusion 360. And Fusion 360 at that time was a free tool, and it's a free tool now, but that was a tool that I used in order to actually create the design that I had in mind. Now, moving forward, when it came to selling STL files, that idea only came to me as I actually got better at my skill of designing. I think for most people, when it comes to designing, you feel like this mental roadblock where you're designs aren't as good, or you think your designs are not worthy of being posted. But truthfully, you just have to commit and actually put your designs out there in order to see some success, or at least some version of success, because at some point it will come to you. And let me just explain what I mean by that. So for example, one of my first tastes of success when it came to selling STL files was actually this 3D printable, stackable, and foldable storage crate. I mean, this design up to this point in time has made close to $5,000 in passive income sales on just one website alone, right? One website alone. So that means is that it actually took me up to 8 to 12 designs before I got to that one design that actually just blew up. And keep in mind, I have 50 plus designs now. So we have a whole catalog of designs just making monthly income passively reoccurring, all because I decided to stick to it, upload it, share it, and actually post it online over the years. Now, will there be a design that just blows up for you? Absolutely not. I also want to mention that I actually, at that time, when I was actually crafting my skills or getting better around 3D modeling and designing, I was actively uploading these designs. I was going and taking photos. I was actually, uploading content. I was actually creating content on TikTok, and I was actually exposing myself. So not only was I creating marketing material for me, but I was taking all the traffic that I got and pushed them to go and buy my products online. And that's what encouraged, and that's what made it blow up even quicker. And keep in mind, if you have 15, 30, 50, 100 different files in STL files, then now you have a whole catalog of designs that once you post it out into the world, now you pretty much have an asset that brings you reoccurring revenue, assuming that your products are good. And that's the whole purpose of why you would want to sell STL files, because it brings you passive income. All the work is done in the beginning, and then all the rewards are granted towards the end, right? Assuming your product is good. Now, here's a cool thing about this path and this trajectory is, like, if you were to imagine there's like a ladder, for most people, the beginning or the starting stages is here, selling 3D prints. And the main reason for that is because there's like a low barrier to entry. All you need is a 3D printer, and all you need is just some filament, right? You can find products online, you can license products, but here at the bottom, since there's a low barrier to entry, that means everyone can come into it and just kind of take up market share if they know what they're doing, right? So if everyone can do it, there's really no separation between you and the next guy who buys another 3D printer. But the cool thing about STL files and selling digital products is that now it's actually dependent on your creativity as an artist, as a designer, as a creator. And even more so, if you want to do this really well, if you have really good designs that people love and adore, and just think of your favorite artists, if you're able to position yourself here, now you're able to move up to the next step, which is actually selling STL files and memberships. And this is my next play, at least my next big play that I made, and I'm going to show you my first taste of success when it came to selling memberships. Now, I do want to mention here, if you actually know what you're doing, you can easily transition from selling an STL file into a membership. And all it really is just switching up the mindset between what you're offering and switching up what your product is towards a reoccurring income stream where people can pay for that instead of the file. For example, I would rather much sell you a $10 membership, or at least a monthly recurring membership, over, let's just say, 5 files at, let's just say, $15, because that means if you're in my ecosystem for $10 a month, all it really means is now you're going to get access to all my designs, which I've already worked on over the years. And all I have to do is just package it up nice and neatly into a bow for you to download it right away and start getting access to it. Whereas the STL files, this is a one-time purchase. So $15 might be more money straight out the gate, but long-term, that's just a one-time purchase that doesn't benefit me, at least after the sale is made. With the reoccurring income, the next month, I've already upped $5. The next month after that, I'm already up $15, and so on and so forth. So when it came to me transitioning from selling STL files into selling memberships, it was pretty easy, because all it really took was just me repackaging the files that I had into a membership, like on platforms such as Patreon, and very quickly within a single month, we've already made and added at least 10 to 30 members within a single month, paying $15 a month. And keep in mind, that's actually not on the cheap end. $10 is usually the average or the minimum, or going even as low as $5. I've seen some creators go as high as $20 depending on what they're offering, but on my end, I was actually charging $15 and still getting people to sign up for this membership. Now I've actually switched over to Skool. In a single month, I was able to generate $6,000 in recurring income from all the memberships that I accumulated from people who I had sign up. And keep in mind, this wasn't just from STL files and from selling physical prints. This is from selling a membership, and it was a package deal because I'm able to take all all the assets and knowledge and things that I learned over the years and package it up into a membership that people would want, whether it's an STL membership or maybe access to me or maybe just access to a community in general. I'm able to sell it and market it differently compared to everyone else just selling an STL membership. And that was my first taste of success when it comes to selling STL memberships. I do recall within a single month on Patreon, we've added like close to $500 in monthly recurring revenue pretty quickly and pretty easily just from posting the content that I made online. In addition, on a single month, I think around November and December, we have added an additional $6,000 in recurring income just from the new members that we've added to my program since I actually switched from Patreon over to Skool. My point with this video is so that we kind of get some clarity as to what the ladder looks like. So regardless of where you are in your journey, if you're just starting from scratch, if you are already creating your own designs and you're looking to sell it or create your own membership, or if you already have your membership and you're looking to scale it even further, honestly, you really just need to understand the trajectory of where most people go, because you're not just going to jump from here at the bottom all the way to the very top unless you have some prior experience and you understand the market and who you're trying to sell to. And truthfully, I can tell you after being in this hobby for the past 5 years that I never would have expected that an Ender 3 would have changed my life in such a way that it would have literally changed not only my income that I've made, but also the people that I've met from the communities that I built, the people that I've helped, let alone all the people that follow me online and actually watch my content. I would have never known that people would actually found this interesting, let alone all the income. Really, truthfully, the fact that you can make money with these machines, think about it. You don't need to be an expert or creative, or you don't have to be any of that. You just need to know how to market it effectively and speak to the right audience. So look, with all that said, I know you might be thinking, well, what should I do in my situation? Well, let me break it down. I first want to break down some of the mistakes that I've made. And truthfully, it might seem like a linear progression from what I've just told you so far, but I've made a lot of mistakes, like expensive mistakes. I've lost money on deals. I've lost time. I've lost money on software and memberships that I've invested in, on coaches and mentors. I made lots of mistakes, truthfully. And truthfully, if I were to boil down to the top 3 mistakes that I made, it would be this. The first one was trying to do it alone. I can promise you that if you were to try to go into this hobby and turn it into a business, it is way more difficult to try to do it by yourself. Like, don't try to figure it out your own. It is way more difficult to try to just figure everything out on your own compared to just working with somebody or networking with other people who've already done it and just kind of being around that network of people. I can't tell you how many times I've been in Zoom calls with people that I've worked with, people that work with me. And just by being in these rooms, seeing connections being formed with other members, not only with me and other members, but other members also collabing and getting new opportunities that they wouldn't have had just simply by being in the same room. And truthfully, if you're just starting out, I promise you, you would benefit 10,000% just by being in one Zoom call with people who are already doing what you want to do and just asking simple questions. Because once you ask these questions, once you start to understand what these people are doing, you'll start to realize how big and broad and how much more money there is to be made with this hobby. And truthfully, it doesn't really take that much. It takes just a little bit of work and effort, and sometimes just a little bit of a push for you to get where you want to go. The second thing is not investing in courses or coaches or mentors. Now, I did invest in courses, but truthfully, I think courses are just like something that you invest in once. And, after some time, especially once you reach a certain level, you don't need more courses to get better. What you really need is accountability, you need mentorship, and you need some sort of guidance and feedback, right? So in any scenario, just like if you go to the gym, you need somebody to hold you accountable. You need someone to give you feedback if you're working out correctly or if you're not working out correctly. In addition, you need some sort of support system where people are going to encourage you and push you, especially when things get hard or when you get stuck. Because truthfully, 3D printing on its own, that's not really a big deal. That's like the easiest thing out of this entire thing. The hard part is actually the business side of it, dealing with customers, dealing with chargebacks, dealing with returns and refunds, dealing with angry customers, dealing with the social media and the content creation, let alone the mental aspect of you having to show up every single day even when you don't want to. That's the hard part. 3D printing, easy. And for me, I really get passionate about this because I see this all the time. People are either lazy, they're unwilling to invest, and they're unwilling to sacrifice, but they want the end result. And you're not able to get the end result without the sacrifice. I can't tell you how much I've spent in my room when I had an office in Manhattan Beach. I just spent my time in that office learning the software, getting good at it, learning Fusion, actually understanding how to use it, how to create products, putting those products out there. I mean, all the time and hours I spent, all because I didn't want to invest in someone who actually knew the answers. I spent or invested my time purely because I didn't want to exchange my money for it. And I wish I'd have done the money. I wish I would have gave the money to someone who knew what they were doing and just gave me the shortcut to what I needed to know, so that way I could have taken action sooner. So with that said, I do want to wrap this up and kind of cover the last mistake I made when it came to trying to make this hobby into a business. And I think probably the most obvious mistake was just buying too much filament. So I would occasionally buy more filament than I needed. I would spend money on filament that I honestly didn't need. And I didn't have a good sort of inventory management. Like if you were to realize and see how much money gets spent on filament, especially on a monthly basis, if you're printing a lot, you would actually see honestly, a lot of people actually have lots of rolls of filament just sitting on the side rather than a structured process of actually organizing the rolls and materials that they have and just kind of mentally compartmentalizing it. Like you really cannot do that. You actually need to organize what you have in stock and what you don't have in stock, and keep a spreadsheet, whether it's an Excel sheet or Google spreadsheet. Keep a spreadsheet, keep everything nice, neat, and organized, and every single day or even week, go in there, check how much you've used, and truthfully, you will thank me later for this. Go in there, just create a chart. Today's Thursday, June 26th, so type in Thursday, June 26th. Go in white, black, orange, yellow, white. Go in there, type in how many rolls you have left, and then the next week come back and then calculate that, and you're going to see how much filament gets used and what doesn't, and you're going to really keep track of what materials you have in stock and what materials you don't. Now with that said, those are the 3 mistakes that I made, and truthfully they're not really that costly in terms of the big picture, because now with all the experience that I have, I can pretty much tell you that most people just need a push, they need some sort of accountability, and they need a support system to really do well. So if I were to leave you with anything, really try to find someone who will help you in this process. Now, with that said, what kind of mindset should you adapt or get or have if you really want to succeed with this hobby? Now, in my experience, at least from being in this for the past 5 years, my background before 3D printing was actually in digital marketing. I was in rooms with people who were making 6 to 7 figures on selling, agency services for marketing material, right? I was in rooms where people, big names, but you'll probably search on YouTube and you probably would know who I'm talking about. People selling $10,000, $15,000, $30,000 in coaching programs just to be in the same room. Heck, even $50,000 to $100,000 coaching programs just to talk to these people, network, learn from them, and see what it is they're doing. And honestly, I would think the mindset, especially when it comes to this hobby, is truthfully just trying to build a great product and actually delivering value to someone. So for example, when I take a look at the 3D printing industry as a whole, I see most people coming into this hobby selling products, and they sell products just to try to make money. Like they just try to commercialize it, make money, just try to capitalize on it, which, hey, look, nothing wrong with that. But my key emphasis, at least one thing that I really deeply care about, is actually creating a product of value. Like, think about it. Someone is going to be exchanging their hard-earned money for what you have. So you need to give them something of value in exchange for their hard-earned money. And when most people come into this hobby and they want to turn into a business, they come at it at a very narrow, selfish mindset. They ask questions like, what niche and what should I sell? They ask very narrow questions as to what's the best selling product, or they ask even questions like what are you selling so I can sell it, right? So they ask these very selfish questions, and that might offend some people, truthfully, but I think it needs to be said. Because if you really want to succeed in this niche long term, it's going to be 3 things. One, it's not going to be by licensing models. Okay, that's good for making some money, side hustle money. It might be good for making some extra money, and maybe even a print farm. But long term, 3D printing will at some point change. 3D printing, these machines will become obsolete within 5 years. I mean, let's hands down. Like, this is 3 years old already. So at some point, Bambu's going to come out with another machine, a new competitor is going to show up, or just in general, 3D printing might just change or evolve as it always does, like in any technology, like the iPhone. Take a look at an iPhone 5 years ago. It was the iPhone 11. Look how obsolete that phone is now. It's practically unusable for almost everything, right? At least in some cases, probably still usable, but for most things, probably not, right? So my point here is that you really want to adapt the mindset. Is like, one, you don't want to be licensing models long term. Short term, yes. Long term, no. 2, you need to build a product of value. And yes, actually investing in materials or resources that allow you to differentiate yourself. And yes, that might mean spending more money on filament. That might mean buying more premium materials. Heck, that might even mean spending more time to maybe even research your market, heck, maybe even patent that product if you have such a unique idea, right? So my point with this is that I too often see people come into this hobby, they create a product and they post it on Etsy or some sort of platform, and the product itself is very subpar simply because they choose not to use more premium filaments or more premium materials, or they simply reduce the quality of the product in order to make it more profitable. For example, I would go to vendor events where people are selling fidgets and toys, heck, even dragons, and I see a lot of vendors actually lowering or increasing the layer height and compromising quality at the expense of just having a faster print and a more cheaper prints per se. So the customer in essence is getting a worser product at the expense of you making more money. And that's not what 3D printing is about. 3D printing at its core wasn't being made to really just create a whole bunch of throwaway items. It was made to develop a product, to rapidly prototype, and to develop that product as quickly as possible without having to use traditional manufacturing methods like injection molding. And I truly believe that to this day. And if you really want to succeed in this hobby, you need to adapt that mindset and being able to produce a product that benefits the customer long term. So with that said, I just want to wrap everything up. If I would leave you with anything, it would be 1, learn the critical skills such as design. Learning how to design and create your own products is critical, especially if you want to survive here in long term. Second thing is surround yourself with other people who are also doing what you want to do. And then lastly, take risks. It's okay if you fail. It's okay if you lose money. It's okay if it doesn't work out, because I promise you, even if it doesn't work out, you'll figure it out. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've worked with who literally have nothing, like literally on the brink of losing their home, to now having an in-person store selling their own 3D prints. Like, it's such an insane thing. And all of this happens within 1 year, just simply by believing in yourself. I can't tell you how many people that I worked with that literally starting from zero, trying to build their own website, selling files and products, and then within a course of several months getting their first batch of members, paying for their memberships and their products. I can't tell you that people in a single month, people that I worked with in a single month, literally going from 0 sales with virtually 0 knowledge around 3D printing, all the way up to making their first 10 sales very quickly within a single month. What takes most people a year to figure out, you can have it all condensed down within 2 to 3 weeks, or even a month, less than a month most of the time, if you're just around the right people. And I promise you, if you are around the right people and have the right network system and the right support system, you can achieve it much faster than you might expect. So with that said, I hope this video has been insightful and informative. I hope it has given you some insights, especially if you're looking to turn this hobby into a business. Truthfully, if you really want to succeed, you have to build a product, like hands down. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, but just build a product. So look, with that said, if you're interested, we do have slots open to 3D Printing School. 3D Printing School is all about helping you learn how to design your own products and designs for 3D printing, giving you the right support system, feedback, and accountability with bi-weekly coaching calls, with a live and active community, and step-by-step tutorials and guides, so that way you can turn that idea you have in your head into a working product, and even network with other people and even see what they're doing and seeing how they're actually successful with what they're doing, and actually take bits and pieces from that and implement that into your business. 3D Printing School is specifically designed to help you as a maker, a designer, a creator, an artist, whether you're a hobbyist or maybe you're already an existing seller. It doesn't matter. It's specifically designed to give you all the right resources, none of the fluff, and as well as accountability to get you where you want to go as fast as possible and give you the shortcut to getting the results you want as quickly as possible. If you're curious about 3D Printing School, there's going to be a link down below. Additionally, if you're curious or have questions, you can also DM me on Instagram. There's going to be a link to my Instagram down below. I also message members on Instagram, as most people have questions there, and I'm more than happy to answer those questions via DM since I'm very active on there. But with that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.